Welcome to the Way Out Recovery Hour. Another wonderful, grateful Monday. I'm Bob Sharits with The Way Out. Remember that asking for help is the first step. The Way Out is an intensive outpatient program for adolescents and adults. We serve a population primarily of substance use disorder, but we also serve families and those suffering from mental illness as well. We are located on the corner of Plum and Bouquet Canyons. Our phone number is 661-296-4444, and our website is thewayoutrrecoveryscv.com. Again, I'm really excited to be here on a Monday. You know, I like to remind everyone at the beginning of the week, for some reason, Mondays is tough for people. You know, some people, they're looking at this big old mountain of a week that we're facing, and I hope to get on here and try to turn that around a little bit. You know, there are so many reasons for us to be grateful, and all we got to do is just tap into that. And if you are feeling like you're facing a mountain this week, take a minute, take a breath. Let's take a look at it and look at the things that we can be grateful for. You know, I get really excited about Mondays. At the Way Out, we try to provide a little bit of a different, well, not a little bit. We try to provide different treatment than a lot of the other places. We try to tailor fit to meet the client's needs. And so we use a lot of what I think would be called non-traditional methods. We take, for instance, last week we invited all of our clients and we went out to the local lake and we did some kayaking and we did some stand-up paddleboard, and they got funny pictures of me and pushed me in the water, and we got to interact with each other and do some really cool stuff. And at the end of that, we always start it with a group and we end it with a group. And at the end of that group, you know, the feedback on things like that is the clients, you know, that although they appreciate talking about the problem and they appreciate seeing what led to their downfall, they more so appreciate in participating in life. They appreciate learning how to do things without the use of drugs and alcohol, and they so much appreciated that. And many of them going into a group or an activity like that are very frightened of that. They're not very good socially, and at the end of that, they say, "Oh my God, I had so much fun. I'm learning how to live again." Some of the other things that we employ over there, and one of the most powerful methods that we use, you know, I've spent my whole life being moved by music. As a little kid, I listened to the music that my parents put on the radio, and I listened to the music that was being played in our house, and I learned to love certain songs. And as you grow older, you find your own niche in music, and you play what is very powerful for you individually. And I've done that, and you know, and music can enhance moods that we're in. It can change moods that we're in, and it can really be beneficial to life and the recovery process. So one of the things that we do at the Way Out is we not only have them introduce their own music and what it means to them and to talk about that, but we also use rhythm and percussion and drumming and other forms of music in the counseling that we provide. And as we get going along the show, I want to tell a story about how I accidentally found myself playing drums because I'm not a musician. I don't play drums, but all of a sudden 2 or 3 years into it, I find it, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm hooked, right? I'm hooked. So it brings me great pleasure to be sitting in the room with two individuals who are just all about the music and wellness for people and introducing that into a therapeutic modality. We have in studio with us today from Remo Drums, Alyssa Janney. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi.
And we have from the New York Pops, accomplished violinist Karen Olson. Hi, Karen.
Thank you.
And you know, this morning it's funny. Alyssa, you and I have been emailing back and forth, and starting last week, hey, thanks for saying yes to coming to the show. Here's a reminder. And somebody else that was supposed to come said, oh shucks, I'm double booked, I can't do it. And it was and then you had mentioned, I think on Thursday or Friday, hey, there might be somebody that I can bring along with me. And then this morning I get the email and you say Karen Olson is coming on with us. I go on to her website, KarenOlson.com, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
wow,
this is amazing, right? Because like I say, I'm not a musician. I just play around with these things and I try to help people. And you've been doing this your whole life, Karen. And you are an accomplished musician, and you use it for the well-being of others. So, like I say, music can move us, and I've always listened to music. I love the music that I listen to, but I had never thought about it in the arena of healing and helping and therapy and counseling and all of that different stuff. How does what does that mean? Of course it does. Of course it does. So, Alyssa, tell us. So you and I met, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago.
Right.
Was something like that, right? And I'll tell the story about how I got hooked in. But you've been doing this with Remo for how long?
About 14 years now.
And how did you find yourself in the world? Have you always been a musician?
I guess synchronicity would be appropriate.
That's right.
But my life meandered around in all sorts of ways. I started out my life with my parents running a children's home in Virginia. And so my great-grandfather was an orphan in Appalachia. And when he grew to be a man, long story, but I won't tell. But when he grew to be a man, he opened a children's home to try to help take care of children so they wouldn't have to live alone.
Well, that's kind of isn't that cool? Let me do something real quick. Isn't that kind of cool that that's kind of a story, a microcosm of a story that happens over and over again. Somebody is suffering in some way, and they find a way maybe out of that, and then they go, "Let me help." Right.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
Right. And so my family was in the caregiving business, and trying to help people, try to help improve their quality of life. And so for me, it was a natural fit when the opportunity at Remo came up, because I love music. I was a musician. I graduated from Belmont University in Nashville with a bachelor's in business administration with a major in music business. And so it was kind of a natural fit just at the right time with Remo. And when I saw what they were doing with HealthRHYTHMS and I experienced it for the first time myself, I was blown away.
Yeah, I get that.
It's, we all share that in common. We're all HealthRHYTHMS trained, all three of us. But I think you can say that it's a pretty transformational experience to experience the protocol, even if you're coming to it from a point of not being a musician at all.
Right. Well, and that's my experience, is not at all and hooked in the first time. Oh my God, there's something big that's happening right here. That's happening around us all the time. Mm-hmm. I think we take for granted the fact that everything is rhythm and everything is connected with rhythm, and we aren't conscious of that and consciously aware of that. And then suddenly we go, oh, wait a minute, and we're hooked on in.
Yeah.
So, Karen, how do you find yourself in the world of music and health being combined?
Well, it just joins a lot of my passions. I started actually the viola as a teenager, and I had a really huge spiritual connection at the same time. And through my life and all my struggles, those two things were always there for me and helping me through them. And as different trials and things came along, I started doing holistic healing work and training, and just got amazed at the power it gave me, and to help others and change people's lives. And so I'm just very passionate about music and vibration and drumming and rhythm and how it can help us change.
Yeah, and when you start to see the results of that, maybe if we have an opportunity, it would be, I'm sure we all have a story of that one person or that one family or that, that you just went, oh my God, like you can see it in real time as it's happening, the effectiveness of using rhythm to help people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just really big stuff. So HealthRHYTHMS is a specific protocol that was designed by whom? What's this history of HealthRHYTHMS?
Well, HealthRHYTHMS was developed by a researcher, a neuroscientist named Barry Bittman from Pennsylvania. And he actually is kind of a funny story. He called Remo Belli on the phone. And, of course, Remo's wife, Ami, is a physician, and said, he had been to the music therapy conference and watched Arthur Hall facilitate a drum circle for about 400 people there. And he said, something biologically must be going on there. He says, he tells a story that, he says, in the medical community, sometimes we have difficulty getting a few people to work together, but yet in a very short span of time, this guy with the funny hat got 400 people working together. So he wanted to investigate and see, what's that all about? Why is that? So he called Remo. He didn't know, he's researching who would care about drumming. So he researched and found Remo and talked to him and said, I'd like to do some research. Would you like to find out if there's any biological benefit, to drumming? And Ami tells me that she pushed Remo a little bit, to say yes. And so they funded the first study, which looked at using the health rhythms, what became the health rhythms protocol, and how it impacted biology, so the immune system. And that's kind of where it started.
So wait a minute. I've seen, and I know this. I'm just going to throw this out there anyway. So wait a minute. When we play drums together, as a community or as individually, biologically, there are changes that take place that benefit us in the immune system. They found that through the studies, huh?
Through Dr. Bittman's studies, he looked at a lot of different configurations of things. He looked at different ways of drumming and different things. And what he did is he came up with this 10-step process that integrates proven wellness strategies with the use of the drum as a tool for communication and personal expression. So, Dr. Bittman likes to quote Fred Rogers, and saying, if it's speakable, it's manageable. And so you use the drum as a means of speaking and expressing yourselves, because sometimes terrible things happen to us in life. And when that's true, sometimes it's difficult to have the words to get it out. And the drum allows you that opportunity to express before you even have the chance to come up with the words that you need to express and get it out.
Well, and as you say that, I mean, think in the world of trauma, abuse, neglect, PTSD, really, really hard stuff, addiction, mental illness. Think in that world and how difficult it is. It's a world of isolation. It's very difficult to communicate what's going on with an individual in that setting. Certainly hard to connect with other people. And you bring something in that's just really, you don't even need to bring a drum in. Let's do it on the table, right? But you bring in rhythm. You bring in something that's another form of communication, and it opens doors up. What are some of the other or some of the avenues that rhythm or percussion or health rhythms is used in? Because what we use it in addiction counseling and with families, but there's many, many uses, correct?
There are. I mean, it's one of the few tools that I know of that really can be used in virtually any population. Right. I mean, children in school, you can use it in senior homes for assisted living and skilled nursing homes. Can be used for goodness gracious, there's virtually there's
limitless. Almost no arena you can't use it in, right?
I mean, you do have to be careful because of one of the components of the protocol is guided imagery, and so when you're working with a mental health population that has psychotic issues with being psychotic, you have to be careful to make sure that, because if they're not grounded in reality, then the guided imagery could be harmful for them. So we generally don't recommend using guided imagery unless you're a mental health professional working with your group and you actually know how they're going to be able to respond to that.
Right, and each one of them individually. Yeah, it's really important. I mean, drumming in and of itself, but with certain populations, it's important for all of us to understand what our scope of practice is and where we can and may do damage. Another one that comes to mind as I'm thinking, this protocol has been used with PTSD. And when you get someone who may have sensitivity to loud noises, you have to be really aware of things like that. But Remo, was the sound technology. So there is technology specifically for using in hospitals or using with PTSD that is not so loud?
Remo first wanted to come up with something that could be used in hospitals, that wouldn't penetrate the walls of the schools and things to make it more accessible to use in the classroom or in the hospital. And had some failures with the product, along the way as it was developing. And then, I got to say, Remo tuned this to his own ear and worked with our developers at Remo to come up with comfort sound technology. And it's a drumhead composite technology.
Okay.
But it's what it does is it eliminates a lot of the twisting motion that creates overtones, and provides, instead of trampoline type motion, which gives you a more powerful fundamental tone. There'll still be some overtones, but they are reduced, and you get a more powerful fundamental tone. So we found it very interesting that it seems to be much more accessible for people with sound sensitivities. So that would include people with autism who may have sound sensitivity as a feature. It seems to be useful whether you're dealing with someone who avoids sensory input or seeks it. And so there's a lot of benefit to it. It has a really wonderful warm sound, and I think Karen has explored the comfort sound buffalo drum.
I love the drum. Yeah, it's awesome.
You've been using a buffalo is a frame drum. Let me show this here, a frame drum. You've been using this particular drum recently?
Yes.
And with client to help in the health arena?
Yes, and I'm developing a program and a workshop that includes the vibrational aspect of the rhythm and tones and on my viola, and I just believe that can speak to us in places, as you were saying, that words can't, which is I've experienced in my life that's where the answers are. So it seems very magical to me.
Well, I think that all three of us have probably experienced this right here, but to our listeners, I bet they have too. Maybe not playing, but in a song where you just lose yourself. Is that a good way to put it? You just kind of, or maybe find yourself. I don't know, but when you're just encompassed in the sound. Everything else kind of goes away, and you're just right there with the sound, because the vibration is what you're connecting with, right? Not the song that's playing, or not even necessarily the people in the room, but you kind of lose yourself in the middle of that. Is that something like what you're talking about?
Yes, I love that it has the bass tones, and I'm thinking of that song, It's All About the Bass, because the bass, the fundamental tone, is really what is the core of the sound, and on top of that are the overtones, which to me, I'm sure not everyone knows what an overtone is, because also it's more or less inaudible, but it's like the Fibonacci series, and you don't really hear them, but they're what makes up the sound, and also the specific tone quality. If it's a piccolo or it's going to be a timpani, you hear the different qualities. But when those vibrations go within you, it's also like our thoughts, because I believe that the healing comes when we see our core beliefs, and that's where the drums and the bass tones can go, because it's all the thoughts above that you don't have as much control over, that causes us so much pain. So just to go to the source of where the problem and the answer is, I believe it's that bass and just feeling within you, because we're also instruments ourselves.
Oh, is that why sometimes when we're in the middle of drum circles, people start crying, or they just right? I found myself do that, where I get just tremendously emotional and for no reason, really, but maybe that's what's going on.
Maybe a big
right?
reason. That's
Good. Of course there is, right?
Think about it. Our bodies are a symphony, because we have rhythm. All of our systems have rhythm. I mean, we have brain rhythms, we have heart rhythms, we have, breathing rhythms. When we walk, we have we walk. We have circadian rhythms that dictate how we sleep, hormonal rhythms. I mean, we are an instrument, like Karen said, and we're Christine Stevens, who is one of the co-founders of the HealthRHYTHMS training program, says we're a walking, talking, ticking, talking polyrhythm.
Yeah, well, right.
The way she says that, right?
Yeah, and big shout out to Christine Stevens. I got the pleasure to go to Resounding Joy in San Diego and have the Health Rhythms training there.
Isn't she great?
And she was
great.
the trainer, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And that was one of the introductions that I used with a new group. And one of the introductions that was given to us was, many of us tell ourselves, oh, I can't do that, I don't have any rhythm. And this is accessible to everybody because it's not professional music playing. You don't have to be a musician, but also when you say to people, let's challenge that idea that I don't have any rhythm, what's the very first thing that we're ever connected with?
That's right, we have a heartbeat.
Right? Is the heartbeat. And the rhythm starts with mom's heartbeat, and it's the very first thing we're ever connected to. And then we have all these other, like you mentioned, the way that we walk, our breath, our heart, and all around us, we start to look at all the rhythms. And when we start our groups, or at least, we start our groups with an intro saying, let's take a minute to just see all the rhythms that are around us. And then let's try to connect with those. Let's try to connect with that. And we start to, you play that, what you're talking about, those bass, and you just feel it, and that's that heartbeat. Boom, 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 right? And it just connects us with everything.
You remember what is it called? We were talking about it in the car, but it's a program that they use with headphones for people with Alzheimer's.
You did mention it.
And I apologize, I'm missing.
Music.
But it'll come to me later.
That's right.
But anyway, they put headphones on people that are essentially not present,
right.
in the
Memory
moment.
loss.
Yeah, a lot of memory loss issues. And they put headphones with music from their youth on, and all of a sudden they become animated and are able to converse, and they come alive. It's like an awakening, like that movie with Robin Williams.
Yeah, like it's
Sachs.
sitting there waiting for the right rhythm to open it up, right?
Right. So, we are connected. They believe that biologically we're hardwired for music. So if you think about it, how our memory serves, things that are connected to music may stick around longer because it's connected, the synapses are connected.
Yeah, it's connected at a different level.
Right.
At a whole different level.
And I don't know,
absolutely.
I don't know if you saw the movie, The Music Never Stopped. But it was about a music therapist named Connie Tomeno, Connie Tomeno had she's the one worked with Dr. Oliver Sacks.
Okay.
And was involved in a lot of his work. And she had a client that came in, and the movie has been fictionalized somewhat, but she said the core story is correct, that she had a client come in, and the client had been absent from his family for 20 years, had a falling out with the father over the Grateful Dead of all things.
Go figure.
And so when they found him, he had a brain tumor and just was not able to communicate at all. And so the music therapist started working with him and pulling out music from his youth. So first she pulled out the Beatles, thinking of his age. And as soon as the music started, he became animated, was able to talk just completely normally, but as if he was in that same time period.
Right.
So there's a lot of interesting things going on about music and memory. I think that's the name of the program.
Music and memory.
But music therapists delve into that a little deeper,
right.
And they are looking at the clinical application of music, and it's a wonderful profession, and they're able to do so much good. I always love it because when you're talking, a lot of times, when educators get frustrated that they can't do more to help their students with autism, a lot of times they'll say, well, finally, I'll send them to the music therapist.
Bring in the music.
And then magical things can happen. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard from music therapists about how music is able to help, people improve the quality of their lives. So it's really a wonderful tool.
Well, it certainly is underutilized. We'll come back after this and stick around, break out your instruments. I think we're going to do a little jamming in the studio. So listeners out there, break out your instruments or break out a couple of pencils on your desk if you're at work and join in with us as we jam along. I'm Bob Sharits. This is the Way Out Recovery Hour. We'll be right back.